I did yell at an AT&T lady today, and told you never to call me again. You know what's wrong is, general public, their drivers have got the lady at the senior center that took care of the senior meals, got told. Well, that meant they all had to be tested, so they don't have general public as a friend. Well, Sawanami had a driver that tested positive, so they had one patient ready for one thirty. And they just dumped it all on me. I was in Osawatomie yesterday. I took one person home, and I had 3 calls in Osawatomie to take people places. I didn't have everybody home. I mean, tell you what, and I could have got a trip to Ottawa tomorrow. I just can't do all this. I want people. And general public isn't running, and they're done.
I've always said job security is highly overrated.
Boy, I could go along with that one. Told everybody, and if I go into quarantine, I don't know how you all are getting to work, we're done. I had to go have that test done a week ago Friday. My sister got it infected. It's just been a mess. I don't even know my name. So this has got to be an improvement. Ready?
I think so.
Here we roll. Do I even have an agenda? I'm sorry.
I guess you should have in your box, you should have the overview of what we got going on tonight. I guess I didn't print a copy of the actual agenda, but
You're gonna start with animals?
yes.
That works for me.
So this summer we talked about the chapter 200 of the animals and the breed specific ban on pit bulls, and we kind of said we're going to get through budget season and then bring that back to council. So this is the time set aside for that. I know that during that conversation there was a little bit of like, hey, we had plenty of information, don't need any more, so haven't provided a whole. I didn't provide really anything other than kind of wanted to talk that I know I've had a conversation with City Attorney Tetweiler and had visited with Chief about this. I know from our perspective, and Chief can speak differently if he has, but is that one is this seems to be our law is a little bit antiquated compared to where everybody else is. A lot of people have moved away from the breed specific, more to vicious dog or dangerous animal type of code. And for us, it's the concern is also the practice of enforcement, and we've kind of done where if it's a complaint, it's complaint driven. If there's a complaint, we go address it. Then we, if it's a pit bull, we try to get the 10 days. They have to get out of town. But it's not really an active type of enforcement. And I think the concern is we're starting to see more and more kind of mixes and everything out there. And at what point do we need to maybe be more active on that? And that may be what we need to do, but we need to make sure that council is aware of that. We're going to move forward a little bit more proactively on that. And really just kind of, we've had a couple of challenges where, what the vet says and what we feel like is what the animal's breed is two different things. The vet may be a lab mix, and we like there looks like there's really pit in there, and whose subjectivity rules on that matter. We don't really want to get into the act of genetically testing dogs, just verify the breeds.
DNA.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of some of the thoughts from the staff level. Don, is there others things that you'd like to add?
City manager's covered it. This has been a nightmare for law enforcement as an enforcement issue. And the city manager covered it. Our officers are expected to, we've always, ever since I've been here, we've never policed We don't drive around looking for pit bulls. If we get a call, then we deal with it. But then it puts a lot of pressure on the officers because they get there and somebody calls and says, hey, somebody's got a pit cross. We get there and the owner says, no, it's a lab. It's not a pit bull. It puts our officers where they're having to make that decision. I don't want to get where we're going to have a court case, which I see it coming, where we're going to have to pay for a DNA test by the vet to say that dog's got pitting. It's just a nightmare for us because officers feel like we drive around, we see pit bulls sometimes, but they're not causing a problem. So we don't, if we see one on the square, we don't go pull the lady over and say, I'm Officer 4, you've got a pit bull there, you've got 10 days. We've never worked under, because that's not what the council's wanted in the past. So it is a nightmare for us to try to enforce this. We're one of the few, I don't know of another city left in Kansas that's had pit bull ordinance. Junction City recently repealed theirs. Everyone in Johnson County has repealed theirs. I just think there's a better way of doing it. I like to breed, non-breed specific. If the dog bites, they get a ticket. If the dog's proved vicious, I have the authority by our ordinance to have the dog put down. We are very aggressive with our animal violations, but this is just something I feel like we've got to look at, or asking you guys to look at and make a decision. Either we're going to enforce it strongly, or we're going to repeal the ordinance.
Don, do you think our license, our registration, and our tagging of animals needs to be improved as well? Like, is that something that, knowing where animals are, in a sense, and what they are?
This year, I've basically told officers, we have a dog bite, it's zero tolerance. If they don't have city tags, they get a ticket. They don't have rabies, they get a ticket. And there's been an influx now, the last 6 or 8 months I've seen. Now, I read 2 of them last night. These ones, yes, but we had dog bites where one was a dog running loose, the officer slapped him. Because we tell them now, we're not leaving it up to officer discretion anymore. I think it's too much of a problem, and I think we need to be forceful about that. If somebody doesn't have rabies and their dog bites somebody, they need a ticket, and they need to face the judge. If their dog don't have tags and they've been here more than a couple months, still I want to use good common sense, but they've let, like last night, 3 years, they got a ticket. So we are pretty well zero tolerance, and that's came from my office, because I just kept seeing a problem where we're giving too many warnings. And then it makes the officers having to, okay, I'm gonna check back in 10 days and make sure you got it. Well, if the officer gets busy or he forgets, then they'll slip through the cracks. So I just tell them basically right now, if they're on a violation, there is a violation, cite them. So they're gonna wake up and they're gonna get their dogs registered.
But it hadn't made any difference as far as how many's registered the dogs, has it?
That I can't.
Obviously, I looked up today, we have 134 dogs that are
In the city of
registered.
Fayetteville.
It's usually 100.
That's much better than we used to be.
Well, it's usually like around 160.
Oh, really?
How many of those dogs are hit mix or something like that?
See, we
Well, I
don't
mean,
know.
like, I
We
know you
don't
can
get
register,
that.
I mean, like, I don't know, if we get away from a breed specific ordinance, ideally, those people that have pits in town would tag their animals so that we know where they're at, you know? I don't want you to go into a house that has pit in it and not knowing that there's a pit in it.
Until we change something, you're not gonna know, because I would say almost every house in this town has at least one dog. Or
Besides,
cat.
I mean, mom, the whole other kids.
And
Okay, there's one house with that, one house with that.
but it's one of those, we know we've got
Yeah.
at least 1,000 or more dogs in this town.
Maybe the others have it all.
And yet we only get 150 some registered,
Yeah.
and I'll bet no cats hardly, is there?
We have 20 cats right now.
Yeah. Boy, 20 cats in this town?
So that covers my block.
I was gonna say, that's probably not yard. They
So
came out that
we're really not
side.
gonna get anything out of the registrations until we have some way of making them register their dogs.
Which, that may help.
I think that's the best thing. What we're doing right now is zero tolerance.
Right.
And we're putting it on Facebook. I think I would be willing to say next year you're gonna see a difference. Because when they get tickets, they're gonna come get, because they're required. If we pick their dogs up, they have to get a license. We won't give them their dog back. They have to pay for that.
Or they do like they used to, they just leave the dog in the pound, and then they go get another dog.
We don't get much of that anymore. It doesn't seem like it. I know it's happened in the past, but it's kind of a rarity.
Well, and I would be okay with revisiting the pit bull ban and just looking at non-specific violent animal as long as the fine for that is appropriate. Because I think that's part of the problem right now is if it's a $10 fee to register and it's a minimal fine, if you get caught with an unregistered dog, then in my mind, there's not much incentive to go ahead and do that, especially if you have a pit bull or a pit bull mix and you're friends with the vet and they can shuffle the paperwork and say, oh, no, it's not, so I'm not really, because I think I would feel differently if we had seen a huge number of pit bull or pit bull mix related incidents, but I don't think that's the case. I think, it's pretty broad as far as the species goes or breed goes. So I would be okay with looking at that. But like I said, I would prefer to have a pretty stiff penalty for a violation and not registering and not being rabies and things like that. So
What's the fine now?
To be honest, I didn't look at that. I was thinking $100.
I don't even think, unless it's changed, it wasn't even that high, it was like $50.
Maybe that's something we do need to increase to encourage them.
Well,
Cheaper to get a $10 ticket than a $100 fine.
was that part of the problem before, was that it was more expensive to pay the fines, then that's when they just left the dog and went and got something else? Was that part of the problem before? 'Cause I remember Ted talking about
The
it,
ones that do that, usually
they just don't want to do the work.
they don't care. It's one of those, it's easier to go get a puppy, they got the excitement of the puppy again and stuff. And they don't wanna have to register the dog, and they don't wanna have to
Yeah.
get rabies shots and stuff, which there's not a lot of rabies out there, but there still is rabies out there. And when it comes in question, if somebody gets bit and they can't prove whether it has rabies or not, they have to get those shots anyway. And I know they've reduced the number of shots, but they're still really painful shots.
I like the idea of the dangerous, vicious animal that's enforceable. That's more, and I like your guys' no tolerance. I think it's, more incentive to do what they're supposed to be doing.
Maybe increasing the fines there too.
yeah, because I do not like the idea of having something on the books that's not enforceable or it's difficult enough to enforce that we've chosen not to until there's an issue, because I think that leads to the proliferation of pit bulls and pit bull.
Well, and if this person gets a complaint, but then down the block, they don't, then it makes
Right.
the officers look bad, like
Right.
they're picking favorites.
Yeah. It's got to be
And I like
enforced
that either.
evenly, and then that way, if it's written in such a way where if something happens, the officers can act on it, and there's no question, and then their hands are tied because this is what the ordinance says.
Well,
This
that's
is
what
what's
the
happening.
officers say, with a vicious dog and they bite somebody, it doesn't matter if it's a Chihuahua or St. Bernard, they still get the ticket, they're still treated as a vicious animal.
And I don't have a
So
problem with
I
that.
just like that.
Yeah.
My biggest problem is the statistics have shown, we went through it, we all knew some personal experience of pit bulls. And it's kind of like the mask deal. A lot of people are wearing them just because it is a law. The change going into Walmart or something is immense. I'm afraid if we do away with the pit bull ordinance, you'll have a whole bunch more pit bulls. And right now, yeah, we don't have many incidents. But part of that's because they hide their pit bulls and there's not as much risk with them and stuff. I just go back to the statistics. For 25% of the breed to have 75% of the maulings and fatalities and that kind of stuff. And the worst cases I've seen, yeah, if you get bit by a Chihuahua, it hurts, but a Chihuahua's not gonna put you in the hospital or something.
But again, we still get in that enforcement issue that my officers aren't experts on dogs. So if somebody calls in and says this stuff, so we're gonna pay $300 to the vet to come up with a DNA test, because that's what our ordinance, it breaks it down where, if we have to prove in court, that's what we're gonna have to do. And that's what Lee and I have talked about, because we can sit there and say, that's a pit, but if a vet down the street, they're gonna have more credence than a police officer. If they put it down as lab mix, then we're gonna have an argument, and that's what least concerning in court. And we've got one dog that's registered as a therapy or service,
It's service dog.
and it's a pit bull, and so that's got out around town. And so all they're gonna do is they're gonna walk in with their little $25 certificate, and they're gonna start doing it. And I'm just trying to get in front of this rather than, because the PD's the one's gonna have to deal with this. And
All right, and I would think that if we do move away from the breed specific and we go to a dangerous animal and we write it correctly, it's gonna be much easier to enforce. And the more easy it is to enforce, because like, I think you're right. I mean, I see them all the time. They're all over, but if you go to the right vet, oh no, it's a lab mix, it's not a pit mix.
Plain
And then-
names.
But see, we already have a vicious dog ordinance and we use it, like he's saying. We use it every time they bite somebody.
I don't even think we need to change our ordinance right
Well,
now. I agree with the mayor. Beef up, punch up the fine, look at our fines,
Right.
see if they need to be enhanced. Talk to city manager about that. I don't think we need to change our ordinance. It's a strong ordinance for a vicious animal. And it gives us what we need.
And that's what I was saying, they
Right.
actually are enforcing it.
Well, if
If
that's the
somebody's
case,
dog bites them and they know whose dog it is, we've always told them.
right, but
My concern is keeping the pit bulls, as many as we can out of the community.
What have we seen other places that's done away with it? Do we know?
As far
The
as,
people that have gotten away from breed specific,
like, the language that they use, or,
like incidents or issues.
I don't know that I mean, we
I
could
know
get
it'll
some,
probably be on the news.
we could get some data on that, but what do you- sometimes we don't keep data until we need the data, and then we're like, oh.
Well,
I
I know
mean,
that,
I was thinking we could ask some of those, like the Spring Hill and Junction.
because I know
see
we
if
saw
it's-
some of that last, when we looked at this last, but it'd be nice to know more recently, maybe.
You're gonna have the same problem we have. Most places have trouble getting people to register their animals and show proof of rabies shots, because if anybody that takes their dogs to the vets knows, it's not cheap anymore to own an animal. Used to, I mean, a vet shot was like, rabies shot was $10, well, now they've got parvo, they've got this, and they've got that. You're walking out of there, if you take your dog for its yearly shots, probably $150.
Dude,
And a lot of people aren't gonna pay that.
how long has Spring Hill, do we know how long Spring Hill's been without?
I don't think they've ever banned them. I don't know. Junction City just the one I know because it was all over the news. They were one of the last cities, and that was last year, they did repeal it. And then, every year or so, you hear another city in Johnson County, Lenexa, some of the cities, they repealed theirs.
I think we're one of less than 5. I mean,
In the state.
If
I
that-
mean, in the whole state.
Yeah, in the whole state.
But
Another thing I'd like to do is push education. If we do this, then we can put it on the city website, our website, and explain, this is the new fines. You need to register your dogs and push that. I know the dog park, we had a meeting tonight with the dog park, and they want to push that where they have a little deal twice a year where they do the microchipping. And she wants to really push people to register their dogs. So that helps the city also. So we need to educate the public. I mean, a lot of people know, but we can also always, Facebook's always good to educate.
Well, and I think, like we said, the fines, because we have runners in our house that are all over town. So if the dog is out and it's gonna bite somebody, it'd be one of the kids. You know, so I take that into consideration too. And I know there's a lot of people that walk and stuff, so I just wanna make sure it's enough of a deterrent that hopefully people will take care of animals like they're supposed to.
Yeah, I do see more people with their animals on chains, on leashes, walking them on leashes versus letting them run loose. I do see more. Every morning they're out.
well, in personal experience, I know the fines work because we had an issue with our neighbor across the alley that their dog, they got to where they wouldn't even shut the gate. Dog would out all the time, attacked the next door neighbor's dog and killed it, and they got a fine, and ever since then, the dog's been chained up out front. And they're
It's
very-
chained in the front
Right.
door.
Right.
The judge doesn't play games with that. If
Right.
that dog kills another animal or causes, we've got one right now where the dog bit a kid. I think there's $700 in hospital bills. And the judge is gonna enforce that, and they're gonna make that dog on her pay that. She's good at that. When all we gotta do is let Lee know that
Right.
we got a dog bite, and she addresses it.
And I think that's what's important, is making sure that if we're gonna have an ordinance, it's enforceable, and it's easily enforceable, so that there's not a judgment call required. You know what I mean? And I understand what you're saying about, you know, you've been here a month and you haven't had a chance to register, you've been here 3 years, you know you should register your dog, here's the fine.
But at least you can say 60 days or whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
Right,
It's,
right.
that's what it
Make
is.
make it clear so that there's no thought process, you guys don't have to think about it, you know what, this is what it is.
Spring Hill, 2014.
2014.
Yep.
So
Looked like Bonner Springs, Garden City, Spring Hill, and Fairway. All went away from that in
Here's
2014.
the, do we give them, I know when they come in there and do their water bill, we kind of give them a sheet. We add that if you're a city resident, you're required to register your animals.
I think it's on there.
I was wondering if, like, that first bill, anybody that comes in, just ask us, do you have any pets? We can register those today, if you, or,
We do that.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, they-
Yeah, we tell
so, okay, well, that's, I mean, just to try.
And it's something that's went on for years. It's been that way ever since I've been here.
Yeah, it's just trying to make sure that maybe we could send a note, I don't know if I can say that, Eric,
Send a note out.
at school. For the kids in the back,
The kids will never ask their parents. if they'll say
exactly.
that.
Everyone is fluffy.
Yeah.
Don, how often do you get calls for dogs at large?
Sometimes once a day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. But since we've got, you know, Kurt, and we've got the nice animal control right now, and our guys go out, but I don't think it's like a real bad situation. We get them picked up, and we're good about getting it on Facebook, and a lot of times it's neat, because since we put it on Facebook, within 30 minutes, we've got somebody call and say, that's my dog, and they'll come down, and they get a ticket, but we get their dogs back to them. So we
Tell them they got
Try to be
registered before they get the dog back.
compassionate towards the, you know, because sometimes you just got to sit, the kid let the dog out accidentally.
Yeah.
You know, we don't come down like the Nazi police on that situation. It's the chronic ones that they just don't care. In the morning, they let their dog out and let them run the neighborhood, you know. So that's the ones we try to take care of.
Do they have to get it registered before you give it back?
Ma'am?
Do you have to make them register before?
Yes,
you give
ma'am.
it
That's
back?
part of the deal. To get them back, they have to get the dog registered, and they pay a impound fee, and depending on how long they've been at the pound, they have to pay that, so.
Do you have any good, body camera footage of police officers chasing the dog?
I would not do that tomorrow. Sometimes it can be embarrassing.
Council after hours.
I'm not gonna tell any of them who asked for that video.
There's already a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The names and badge numbers have been removed to protect the innocent.
Okay,
So,
think we ought to move up to 2020.
so I guess my thought is trying to get a consensus here. We could draft, try to review this code and bring, kind of update it with the more modern language, review the fee structure and include that in there, and try to have that ready for like November study session to review. That way it's not trying to rush and get that done before next Tuesday.
It's kind of like the chief said, your ordinance is good enough. If you want to change it, all you gotta do is remove the
Well, yeah.
Well, and I was
Make
thinking,
it vicious.
giving us some time to find where maybe some of the other communities are fine structure wise, and where we think we might ought to be. Right. Some of that is, those are things that you don't always change, so we may want to be more towards the higher end, because
It'll be more of a deterrent.
yeah.
Right.
That work for most.
I'm okay.
Anything else on that?
Yep. Recycling.
Recycling, I've got a short presentation that I printed off for you.
I bet that's mine.
Yep. Great.
I can't even get in the right spot. Thank you.
I messed everybody up.
Come on, please, welcome me.
I'm out here. I don't want to like that chair.
I planned this.
I don't like being in that chair.
We did like the baseball and have cardboard cutouts.
Put my,
No,
put me
no,
there.
we can't do
So I met with John Blessing and Bryce Smith with Waste Management. We kind of talked about, got information on the tonnage of material that we've been taking in. And also kind of talked about working on an educational plan that involves getting an article in the paper. There's been a little bit of trying to, I'm not sure which is worse, if you're trying to get something out of the federal government to publish or out of a private corporation like Waste Management. There's a little bit of control there. But we got to get, we're kind of working towards that. But so I kind of wanted to bring council up to speed on information that we got. And so if you go to this page, it basically shows the 2020 value is just through August. And so what I did is I just took a rough average month and then projected out to the 2020p is the projection. We are going to see, looks like we'll see a little bit of an increase. I think it was Bryce said that actually Waste Management seemed kind of like a 25 to 30% uptick in their use. So ours could be a little bit higher because we would have had a couple normal months in there. But you can see we've been around 400 last year as far as recycling was a little higher, around 451, and kind of around that 2,000 mark for trash each year. Any questions on that? We didn't really have a good visit with them. I know we kind of talked about, like how many customers use recycling or put recycling out. They didn't really have a way to track that data, so that number, we don't have that number.
Do you know how many customers total Paola has to utilize trash?
What I used as we get into some of the stuff for the next ones, I went through and we kind of have fluctuated between, in 2016, I think I took like a quarterly look, and that average quarterly was like 1,815. Right now, we're around 1,860 residential customers. So.
Has an increase much, has it?
No, it really hasn't, and especially if you look at kind of the last few years, it's been relatively flat, a little bit increase, but not really much. Sanitation charges, so that this graph is big, or set of tables is in that light green is the current waste management charges. We would be subjected to the 2% annual increase coming in January 21, and then the recycling upcharge of 88 cents, so that 2021 charge is really going to be $17.19. And if you look at where the city's current charges we're at 17 for residential, and then we have a kind of a qualified residence, which is more of, is it senior?
Yeah, low income senior.
Low income senior customer class that we have. And so we are kind of that qualified residential or residents, they're quite a bit different, but they're only about 30 customers on that. So it's the volume there isn't as high as on in the main residential class. But you can kind of see that if we estimate those costs out, so what I did is I took 1860 times these values up above to get the waste management cost for 2020, the 2021 cost, and the estimated city revenue. You can see that we would be next year estimating about $5,000 short if we went with that recycling option and paid the 88 cents if we did not adjust our rates.
And that 2% increase, that's every year?
That's every year. If you go to the next little slide, that actually shows what I tried to do is I took the 2021 charge plus the recycling, and then I added 2% each of those next years through 2025, which is when the contract year is up. And so you can kind of see how that rate is stepping up for waste management over that time frame. And then the lower table was just throwing together some ideas of potential how we might want to adjust rates for what we charge our customers to compensate for the waste management charges. And I just did a simple 3% increase, and then I also just did just said, oh, let's just make it easy. We do $1 for each one. That kind of gets you more into that 2023 range. You're still going to be short on qualified residents. You're going to have to do a lot to increase theirs to get to where that class is breaking even, so to speak. But if you look at the $18 charge, we're at the end of 2023 before we probably have to really consider another rate adjustment at that time. If we do just the 3%, we're probably going to be back next year at this time talking about rates for the next year, because we've got another 2% coming. We're going to be above that 1751 next year.
So you're saying option 2, the $18 and $6 would probably leave it until 2023,
Probably, yeah. And so if you look at the next one, I just put in there kind of, I took what the costs were going to be from waste management for 2021, and then put in, I did red, orange, or orangey, yellow, and green for stoplights. You know, we'd have a little bit of generate some excess revenue next year, but then that would kind of eat into that each year, and then we'd, like I said, probably in 2023, and we'd have to look at making another adjustment.
This doesn't include the citywide cleanup, does it? Isn't that a separate budget?
That's a separate charge, yes. Is that?
I mean, the residents don't pay for that,
No.
but that doesn't come out of
For
this.
citywide cleanup,
Oh, no. Yeah.
That's not included in any of this. But that's free to our
did we
residents.
take that out of sanitation, or, okay.
Mhm. Yeah, but that's free to our residents if they choose to. And to me, that's such a good program, and I tell everyone, you know, to take advantage of that.
I know we've talked about water, sewer, wastewater. I knew that we were gonna look at increases in those as well, but I didn't know the timeline on things that are gonna happen in the near future.
I would say water, we would probably, I'm starting to get some data on that, and I would have a conversation maybe November on that to begin with. And then sewer, I think we've got a little bit more time on that. It's just something we may want to be looking at, keeping track of. I think it's some of that, you know, we've kind of consolidated some of that for next year. And I think that'll help give us a better idea of where we need to be sewer-wise. And also, I think we've got enough time that if we do the master plan projects in water and sewer, that when we talk about sewer, we can maybe have that information back and kind of be able to guide that rate discussion for sewer. I don't know that we'll be able to wait for water. if we're kind of nipping up each year, and we kind of probably need to make an adjustment on that.
What would the possibility be? You said we've only got 30 qualified residents, so 30. What would the possibility be of just making the residential 1825 and leaving the qualified where they are at 5?
Oh, I think
If
we
they're
could,
blowing.
I mean, I think I could make that, I could do that adjustment. I would imagine that would probably work out as far as.
Well, I just looking at the numbers, I was thinking that would get us to the end of 2024, and then the additional amount that we're earning would definitely offset those 30 residents for the few dollars a month that we're spending on that, and that way we're not taking the seniors or anybody with limited income. But I know it's only $1, and I'm thinking, okay, it's $1 for them, or it's 25 cents more for everybody else, so maybe.
Well, percentage wise, it's a lot.
Right, right.
Yeah,
So maybe
exactly. I mean,
right.
that was,
Right.
if you looked at the base residential was, you know, a little over 1% difference to get to that,
Right.
the level, and it was like 63% difference for that base rate, because we've left them
Right.
alone for so long.
Right, and that's what I was thinking, because like I said, if mine's gonna go up $1, $1.25 doesn't mean anything to me for the month, but I'd rather do that and leave those 30 down at 5, and if everybody else is okay with that.
Yeah, I totally
And then that takes us to the end of 2024
We're starting,
projected,
we're currently paying 17, and you're saying move it
bump it up to
to
1825,
Instead of just 18.
1825.
yeah, 18.25, and then leave the qualified residents at 5. Because then we're still gonna be through the end of 2024 with the extra
Well, I
penny
see
that we're making
gives
on
us
everybody else. That's,
24.
yeah, that's still gonna offset their cost even partially through 2024. And then we can look at it
You
again.
get a little additional revenue too. That, well, that gives a couple of years, 2%.
This will take effect to the beginning of the year or immediate.
Whenever it comes.
Whatever, it's fine.
Well, my thought would be is we could prepare an ordinance for, probably just November, just to have.
Do all the touchy stuff on working the election.
No, we would still, there would be approval on the night when you're.
Speaking of, I'll be gone in November.
But we would just. have
Pass it and make it effective
And pass it and be
January 1.
effective January 1.
I'd be okay with that.
That would be $1.25 increase.
But 88 cents of it is just because of the recycling.
Right, yeah, you're looking at.
Yeah, to maintain recycling. You know, I think there's more and more people that use that. I know when I'm out on Thursdays, I see more bins out. I know Peoria's got a lot. We all have.
We use it.
Yeah, we do too.
Marty uses it.
I don't want all the like the utilities all to go up at the same time. Oh, is it very all go up at the same
My wife-
time? They need to know there's some upside.
Yeah.
My wife did.
And I would say that it is nice
I
if you do water at the beginning of the year.
I know.
Usage is low, right? And so you
You're
don't.
Stephanie.
So, and I'm sorry, you were talking about
Chiefs game last night.
That 2%,
Don't talk about
the water rates going up, and then we're still discussing and trying to get information about the wastewater.
Yeah, well, he was asking about timing and not trying to get them all to hit at the same time. I said it is sometimes nice to have, if you do water at the beginning, because people are using less water, so it's not like you're hitting them in the middle of the summer and you've got, yeah, you know,
when they're watering.
they kind of get ranked into it.
But you know, if you're increasing, if they're only increasing at 2% a year, starting at 221, you've got 22 and 23 where you're gonna be having that extra 2%, wouldn't you? Because this is
If you want, you could say leave proposed all the increases, and that way only one person takes the heat.
I'll get enough emails.
Well, you all can say that next time, because you won't be here.
I'll tell you how to do away with that. Quit email. I now have. an
Oh, would it
email.
were that easy?
I do have an email now. Sean bought me a phone that my thumbprint is protected. He says, Mom, look, you've got email now. And I said, don't you tell everybody.
Now, what point in time does the 3%
If you
increase
ever
come
started
into
using
effect?
it,
You think that over time, when you get the 3%
I did
increase,
use it at one time. And I found it.
I know you
said
said
the best.
I know you had some bad emails.
No,
Well,
it still was just a pain in the butt.
and you
People
could look
send
at that
crap.
as,
No, it's crap.
hey, we know that we're
And I
gonna
don't
do
mean
this.
complaints. I was.
See, that's why
they
you
sent
got-
funny
you got
stories
two
and all this.
categories. Your email and your junk mail. And your
And you're just.
phone's
stepping
usually
it out.
smart enough, it takes a lot of the crap and puts in there.
You could do that,
And you never have to even see it.
whether or not
You might
you
be
got
getting
the
those
tolerance to
from
pass.
Right. Emails
I
will
don't
be
know,
like-
I've seen on budgeting wise that you.
Yeah.
You know that they aren't real.
Oh, I
I saw that on like
Yeah.
the rolls for 2 minutes. I got an email from Marty.
And she needs to get a
I
call.
want to tell
Yeah.
you,
I like
I got
that.
an email today or a call today from Amazon that said I charged $107 on something I ordered.
So the end of
Now, you know I don't order from.
2022.
A lot of this stuff sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
And
2.5.
and at that point,
Trying to get you to verify your credit card number, and oh, they do the same thing at tax time, they'll call up and say you've been subject to an audit, and they'll have details about you, but they want you to verify your social
My
security number,
favorite-
when you do
Are you
verify,
stupid enough to do it?
a lot of
You
people.
would be
a-
amazed at how many
A
people.
lot of people, a lot of people.
And it's usually the elderly.
I like
Well,
what I
I
said,
never
we're
leave,
sending
but I don't
cops.
do
But I mean, a lot of the elderly,
You wouldn't say
they
cops if
honestly,
you were a
they think
legitimate
that most people
business.
are honest, so they think,
We're sending
well, if they
cops.
say they're in the government, they gotta be in the government.
Well, my.
Especially if their phone registers
Yeah.
United States government.
I refuse to answer my home phone. I mean, everything goes to voice.
You're gonna have to knock on the door to tell her anything.
You're right, you walk in, you're knocking on my door and hoping I answer it. I
Then she'll
guess.
have her pit
Don't
bull
answer.
waiting on you.
Yeah, don't answer the door, it's spam. Don't answer the door.
You call a taxi, that's the only way you get it, is call a taxi.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I just don't have time for that, I just do not.
You can blame me. It's fine.
I'll tell them to call, send them all to leave.
So Aaron was asking, like, when does the 3% make sense? And I said, that if you wanted to know that you were gonna do 3% every year, or if we said, okay, we're gonna pass an ordinance this year, and we're gonna do, it's gonna include 3% this for next year, and then for the next 3 years, then it does allow you to kind of slowly step into
You mean
that.
for the sanitation charges?
Yes, for the, you could.
Because they've got 2%, and then the 88, the 3, because if you, $1, that's more, that's like 2%. More than 2%.
And you'd probably have to adjust, like I said, I think you're being able to have a little bit extra would be smaller each year. Instead of you're gonna have that chunk and you may eat into it a little bit, but then you can, and then what you could do is we could do this and know that rather than wait completely to 2023 to do the adjustment, we're gonna do something to begin.
3% per year
Yeah,
instead of
right,
all
so-
those.
Put right out there.
How often does Waste Management do their fuels charge?
Isn't that yearly?
I thought
Well,
it
I
was every
think-
couple of years, like, I didn't think it came up every year, but.
Yeah, but it's went
I
down.
think they
every-
can any year, but I don't know, have you experienced?
Seems like it's been a while since.
Well,
Yeah,
I
fuel's
thought
been
they
down
did
for
it
a
for a
long
real
time.
long time, and then I thought they just made one here like a year ago, or like they hadn't adjusted for several years.
But Aaron, the gas prices have not been going
Right.
up, and I think there's a thing in there, it has to go up so much before they can do that, isn't it?
I just
Yeah,
knew- I knew there was.
there's some
a
language in
stipulation
there
for
that,
They
gas.
can't just say,
No, because gas.
Yeah.
But also,
came
if gas
down
prices
to
go up,
$1.99.
to $4, you would anticipate that they're going to
Right.
cover that.
which I
When it
think
got
that's when
up
they
to
started.
$3
doing
and
Yeah.
something, yeah, about
It was.
$4 is when they did that, a fuel adjustment charge on there.
I guess we'll adjust that if it happens.
yeah. yeah, we would have to step back and say, okay, we've got to get to this level because the fuel was driving the cost on the disposal side.
Okay, so where are we at here? Going from 17 to 1825?
That's kind of my thought is what we would prepare, we'd leave the other qualified residential at 5.
Right,
And we look at an effective date of January 1.
that's where we're at, right?
That's where I believe we are at.
And that will include keeping recycle weekly.
That would keep recycling weekly. It incorporates covering the cost of that 88 cents for the kind of the processing, the additional processing costs for the recycling on waste management's in. So we incorporate all that and cover all that plus our 2% for next year.
Yeah.
Get
So
us
we
through
should
the
be
end
in
of
good
2020
shape.
or 2024 almost, you know.
The $1.25 should get us to 2024.
Yeah.
What's next year?
I'm hoping to, maybe if someone doesn't recycle, now they get, they feel like they're paying for it, maybe they'll.
Encourage them to do
But
that.
I hope our educational, like I said, there's some stuff that Waste Management already has that
Waste Management will give you a receptacle, right? Like
they will give you a 65-gallon lidded receptacle, because I just had a tub before and I called them and the day it was raining, I was trying to set out cardboard in my tub. I got to just call and get
Did
that.
they charge you additional for that?
No,
They
it's,
just swap it out.
it's part of the recycling.
They used to, but they don't anymore.
Yeah, they
Now,
just-
if you want
still
a
have
bigger
my
one
blue
than
tub.
that 65, my understanding, then you would have to pay for that. Like,
And you
wanted
just
it-
call them and request it.
Right.
The good thing though
I
is.
did have to give a blood sample.
Yeah.
Show them a picture of my pit bull.
We often have more than can fit in there, but we just put a cardboard box on top of it and they just take it all. Because as long as it's in a box that's recyclable, they'll take it.
They always take mine. I just plop it out there.
Yeah,
They're always very nice to me.
they are.
You do a good job.
They
I
really
know.
do.
Both the drivers and the driver.
What did you say?
Says I know the driver would throw it.
Oh.
They take care of it.
She's got people. She's got people is what she's saying. She's got people.
This is why we're not.
They are really good. They are. And they do a nice job. Sometimes I help them load it. From there.
Village pull the handle and crush it off.
No, they don't let me do that. They don't let me ride on the truck.
I was gonna say, you see her hanging over like a truck, man.
Like, what is our
Just pay a taxi on the side.
Why's the mayor loading my trash? Don't shut up.
You know, they do a good job. though.
They really do a good
They
job.
really do. I can't praise them enough. They're good to clean it up. And
I see complaints in other surrounding communities that have a terrible time. So I'm glad we don't have that problem.
no, we don't. They're right there on top of it. Very good. Okay, where we at? Industrial?
Industrial park update. Let Randy can give us an update on that.
Hi, you are.
Would you like to come up and sit at your?
At your table?
Spotlight.
So we moved forward with rezoning for the track 3, which is what New Gardens. All the publications and the mail notifications have been done. The public hearing will be at the planning commission meeting on October 20th, so in 2 weeks. I have gotten a few calls, I've gotten 4 actually, which is kind of surprising because, you know, you just don't call for that. We've had 3 that they're just wanting clarification what's going on, because you'd be amazed at how many people think thoroughfare access is a road. So they think there's gonna be a new road going back there. I said, no, I said it's just rezoning a lot. We have 1 that already asked if they could file a protest petition, so,
What for?
she said no.
Do they think it's a ball diamond?
They
Because I
don't,
know there's been a little bit of a misunderstanding.
they don't know the development itself yet. I'm
Okay.
trying to keep it separate on the zoning and the development, because it's 2 separate
Okay,
things. I don't want people to think you're
Why
doing it
would
just
they-
because
are
Is
they
it a-
complaining about? Yeah, why are they complaining
Are
about
they
that?
residents right there? Is that who's?
Yes,
Okay.
it's elderly residents who feel like they just don't want it in their backyard. And it's the typical, I'm sorry that you bought this house with industrial park behind you, there will be something. Once I told them that the rezoning thoroughfare access is actually less intense than the business park zoning, they all calmed down and pretty much okay. So they just don't want traffic and they don't want to see something huge outside their window. So, once they realize that this is probably the best case scenario for them to be butting up their houses to one building, I think they will allow that, so. See what happens. Although the liquor stands, they have reached out to Allen Brand Juice to start their survey work for their site plan, so they're gonna go ahead and start working on that process, so they're excited, and we are working on the land purchase agreement for them, and we've also reached out to Allen Brand Juice to start, the lot split, so that way liquor stands will know the exact dimensions they need. So not to make it official, just so they can go ahead and put it. That's all I have for that.
And we've met with community garden representatives. We got a short tour of the gardens out there. And I think there was an article in the paper that seemed to didn't, I think it got people kind of wound up about something that wasn't wound up, didn't need to be wound up about, and I think that helped, our conversation with them helped. I think they have their roots down out there. And I think their roots are down out there, and I think we need to understand that. I know we've talked about, keeping that available. I think it's going to be hard for anybody to want to come in and move them out, or us to want to move them out. I think there might be things that I think there's interest on their end, at least a little bit, depending on things of potentially trying to do some fundraising to purchase the lot, just as so they can permanently have it. I don't know if they will get that done, or how far they would get on that. I do think there's an opportunity for us, maybe some collaborative partnership stuff with the city and having that there. I know that gets a little bit murky sometimes, and ultimately, if it's still that way, if the volunteers walk away from it, it's gonna be our baby to take care of. But I just kind of that's kind of my synopsis of our conversation. I don't know, Randy or Stephanie, you have other thoughts on that?
Covered it pretty well, yeah.
Anyway, that's food for thought for council. I think there was concern about, like, even though there was this idea of this lot split, that they were going to have to move part of the garden and stuff. And we said, no, we're trying to keep the footprint, keep your footprint within the boundaries of what you would get for your 2 acres, or what the lot that you would be able to utilize for the 2 acres. And I think that helped. The plan is November 10th. Again, we'll have a big meeting there. But,
I know, I picked up on that.
but you'll be there on the 10th, won't you?
Yes. I just want to get the work study.
Yeah. So that way, the rezoning and the lot purchase and all that can kind of be done together.
I hate to miss meetings, but they're desperate for people to help.
At the voting, when does the early voting start?
14th.
Of this month? I've got a carload to bring.
Even
home.
my-
Voting in a group.
Even my 17-year-old told me at one of the polling places, I think they sent an email to the high school, and because they need people to wipe down machines, and
I think it's the 14th, is next
Yes.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
so if people don't want to work, plus they need extra people, so. Anyway,
It's kind of tricky.
yeah.
Okay, Craig Browning, I knew, was buying the third base liquor.
Yeah, nothing really else on that. That's for the council meeting. Baptiste Drive extension is as I kind of told council, we had really good bidding on that. We had, I think it was 7 firms, construction firms bid on that project. Everything was below the engineer's estimate. That is, if you remember, is a KDOT match project that's at 75-25. And so I think everything for that is progressing forward. We'll have that recommendation for Monday, or not Monday, Tuesday.
I had a question about that. I know when we originally talked about, excuse me, sending the bids out, I had abstained from voting. Can I just recuse myself from that entirely? Or do I just need to abstain from voting on that? And the only reason I say that is because there was a lot of publication about that project helping businesses down in that area. And really the business it's going to be helping is Taylor Forge, my current employer, because we're the ones that ship out the very large items and we use that road consistently. So I don't know if I need to, and not that,
Not be involved.
right, not that I'm that concerned about it, but I think I would prefer not to be involved in those discussions and let you guys decide that, because I don't want that to, because I've gotten comments about that from people at work because I've seen that and I don't want,
You know, we
just
just had a.
feels
council-
weird, I guess.
We had a councilman one time, was it Harry Hodier, I think? He came up to the bed and breakfast and he just left the room. And then when it was done, the
Came
vote
back.
was taken, he came back. It was in regard to
Well-
that because they have a bed and breakfast.
Right, and I wasn't sure what the proper protocol was for that, because I don't feel like I should be involved in those discussions. I know I know there's other businesses down there, but when you see the traffic,
I can visit with Lee Tetweiler. I think technically, kind of, I mean, and there's comfort levels too. I think where you are, if you were the owner of Taylor Forge, I would say, yes, you definitely don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But by me just being an employee, I don't know that would put you in that realm.
well,
But
I
I
didn't
can-
think that, but I am on management staff.
No,
So
I can see where you're coming from.
Well,
It's part of our board of
And I can visit
directors,
with
so,
Lee what's the best thing to do.
right,
whether
because
it's
I know
just
if I
recusing or-
abstain, then that goes with the ayes. And so I would prefer just to recuse myself completely, so there's no
Well, that's what Harry did on that issue.
vision of impropriety or anything like that. Just-
I don't blame you, small community.
Well, like I said, when we were originally talking to Jay and he was talking to KDOT about that, he had reached out to me for specific pictures of our equipment leaving. And I don't know that I've ever seen anybody stop traffic the way we do coming out of there and that, so.
I stopped watch.
Yeah.
But when they take.
After
out
we
those
built that
big
extension, is
pistols-
there industrial lots down there, or is that all private? Like,
There is,
is there city owns?
mostly, no, it's all
No
privately
city
owned,
owned, okay.
but there's, I don't know what's his name?
I
Might
think
be able to
they're-
develop some of that.
All occupied in a sense. I know there's one that is occupied by him, I think just for storage, but, I know DC Solutions is down there, LSX Construction is down there, and Elizabeth Lake, so I think they're all full right now.
I think they are too. I drive through there every couple of days.
Yeah, there's houses and there's one empty lot north of Taylor Forge, but we own that property, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
We
might
probably should.
You probably should.
It's a joke. That's a joke.
We do, bro.
But that's not mine.
That's okay, I call it Andy.
Okay, well, yeah, if you wouldn't mind just visiting with me,
Yeah, I'll do that.
because I would feel, that's just uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Okay, standard traffic, UPOC.
Standard traffic ordinance, basically with COVID and the shortened legislative session, there was no changes. We do have to renew our license with the league to utilize that, and I think technically we wouldn't have to pass another ordinance, but I kind of visit with Lee and I feel like, I think it's better, we just pass it. That way, if 5 years from now, we look back and we don't see, well, why did they never approve that, you know, and then it's all connected, it was all legit, but we'll just pass one. And then UPOC, there was a few changes. And you might have more detail. There was a typo correction. There was one section that we'd already, didn't really pertain to us anyway. And just a few other little things. That'll be for Tuesday. Any other questions on that?
When do we update our, like, building construction codes?
Well,
We'll probably do the comp plan first, right?
yeah,
That will kind of dictate.
What we do.
Yes.
yeah.
And that's a very long process. We can't just say, hey, we want this. That's kind of a long process.
Well, I think the initial process, we started talking about, talking to the county and seeing what the other builders wanted to do and possibly trying to get a meeting going to update our codes. Not specifically because of the whole bed and breakfast issue, but that was kind of the driving force behind it. And then everything kind of got put on hold because of COVID, so.
Because I think we would talk about sharing some of the expense for some of it.
The county,
Yeah,
and Lewisburg was starting that process, weren't they? And they moved forward on that?
I think they were in conversation with a couple of private firms that do that. I don't know if they move forward.
I think they're about the same time.
Yeah,
Was-
I haven't seen anything recently in regard to where they moved forward with that.
Was that their code or their comp thing?
I think it was
Code, okay.
Biz or something.
I think I kind of lump them all together
Yeah.
in my mind. Okay, roof bids.
Yeah, I just had some other informational items on there. The Miami County Small Business Cares Grant, that's part of the COVID money that go to small businesses to try to pick up kind of those that fell into the gaps maybe with CDBG, CV, and some of the other.
What were the initials again?
Do you know, I was glad to see some of our businesses in town did qualify. I think I read in the paper, was there 7?
Yes, I believe that's right.
Mhm. That applied and received funds. I was glad to see that.
Roof bids, we'll have those for November. I've got the spec. Kurt's wants me to make a few minor adjustments on it, so I gotta finish that up, but have those out. We did send out letters to septic haulers out at the lagoons. It's we've kind of got a big mess out there, and we're just gonna do a moratorium on that dumping out there. We'll get it cleaned up, and we'll also kind of figure out, do we want to allow septic haulers to dump out there? And if so, what costs do we need to have associated with that to compensate for future cleanup items?
Do they pay anything now?
Most of them are, one is not. There's supposedly a reciprocal deal, but I'm not sure how well that reciprocal deal was working on our behalf, so.
Where else can they dump in the people like this dumping county?
I think, I'm trying to remember, there was some alternatives that we talked about that even one of the services mentioned that there was some out there. I think they can also, a plant up in Johnson County, they can dump
But
at
they
too.
have to take it clear up there.
I think so.
versus-
It seems like there's a place in Miami County, but I don't remember. I'd have to
Well, it
visit
seemed
with
like
Kirk and Brett on that again.
several years ago, this was kind of an issue, and I don't know if someone was dumping it illegally or what, but I know there was kind of a thing about where they could dump it, that there wasn't a lot of places accessible.
There aren't a lot of places that want that kind of waste. It's not always good for the waste stream. It's usually comes with a lot of trash, and that's exactly what we're seeing. And where we were having them dump wasn't really designed to dump. It was basically almost the way I kind of envisioned that. What I see of it is like almost like a boat ramp that we had in our lagoons, and we just let them dump there.
It's on
That's
that
not
one
really,
end by the railroad tracks.
that's not really conducive to a good setup, because you don't
So were they dumping when it was the city lagoons?
Yes.
I don't know, I would assume
think
they
they
were. I don't know. How long is the plant's what, was 07,
Something like that.
something like that?
That'd be about right. How many are there? There's 3.
There's four. And a couple of those are pretty sporadic to begin with, and then one's fairly regular. The way I understand
Is that the one we have the agreement with?
Yes.
Figures.
Well, you know, it's economical, done for nothing, right?
And sales tax, it's doing well.
Yes, continues to best September that we've had, and on pace for a very good sales tax year in Paola. We didn't quite, we had, I think June, we had a record number, then we had another record in July, and had another one in August. We kind of dropped off in September a little bit, but it was still pretty strong, so.
Well, October should be good.
Speaking of sales tax, can I bring up something that's kind of sales tax related?
Yep, one other thing for the council meeting, we do have a citizen who we've been trying to work with at the staff level about some speed limits on Peoria. They will probably be at the meeting on Tuesday.
In regard to,
They would like us, I guess, the main thing is once it's just to post the speed limit on Peoria. We're like, I don't know. They really didn't talk about extra enforcement. We've been trying to work with them, or Stephanie has had a lot of phone calls with the person. And yeah.
in regard to the speed,
The order's a nightmare.
Yeah,
It
her
really
concern
is.
is Holy Trinity.
Huh?
Her concern is the kids trying to cross the street, getting out of Holy Trinity.
We've had more hit and runs on that street than anywhere else. in
Peoria?
town.
do you know, they park on both sides of that in places, and it makes it difficult.
Yeah.
I got passed on there one morning, I was doing the speed limit, and somebody passed me. I thought, what in the?
Oh, my bad, Artie.
What did you? I mean, I was a little surprised, I thought, well,
I've tried to do that before, but Holly grabs the wheel, she won't.
she won't let you pass me, I am slow, I
Hey,
use my
they said you
sheriff's
pass you on
office.
the right.
Yeah, I've read that. I had a sheriff's officer tell me that one time, says, oh, God, we can't even get in behind that taxi. I said,
Is
well,
she a new resident of
we are.
Peoria or something? No?
What I wanted to bring up, we had a discussion, I don't remember if it was after you, I think you was already here. The Veterans Memorial needs some work. And we was waiting we put it off, waiting to see if our sales tax was gonna take a dive or stay strong. We're only talking about $6,000. At the most, it would be our share if we went 50-50 with the county. If we could, I'd like to see us do that so that they could actually take advantage of the weather and actually get it done this fall.
what is it it's going to do?
Redo the concrete and stuff. It's not designed right, and they're gonna,
Oh, really?
It's getting a lot of water underneath it, it's got a
and
lot
it's
of.
cracking and bringing it up and stuff.
Oh, dear.
And
That's-
for about 10.5, they figured they could fix everything and it'd be permanent and wouldn't have any problems.
Yeah, that needs to happen, lots of people go ahead.
Who was going to lead that project?
Was it Jack?
And
I thought Jack Johnson was involved.
Yes, it was
This is the one
Johnson.
that, this is actually a county, like Miami County
Yeah.
Parkers Memorial, right?
Yeah.
But it's just in,
The word is right
Right.
there.
Mhm.
They asked
Veterans
if we would be
Memorial.
going to help.
still, okay. I didn't know if it was us coming to them saying, hey,
No.
you need to exterior.
Rob approached you, didn't he?
Yeah, Rob Roberts came to me and asked if we could do it, or if we would help do it. And where it's county, yes, I told him we might be able to help, if I could bring it to the council, and that's when we brought this stuff to you guys.
That's such a pretty place.
It is.
It's attractive coming in,
Very, and they take good care of it,
but it's only gonna get worse if they don't get it fixed.
and then it will cost more.
Well, you're right, we could take advantage of the weather and get it done now.
Should that be something we could vote on at the council meeting?
Yeah, I think we could do that, or if we wanna just, I mean, honestly, I don't know if you just wanna give that direction. You want to do that, I think we can, I don't know, we don't really need to vote on that, it's not,
It's under.
you know, if it was $500,000, I was, 50, we'd probably say yes, but with that, I think, I don't know, is that something, you wanna reach back out to them and say, we're good with that, or you want me
I can
to?
do that.
But just have them, I guess, make sure they give us an invoice so that we can pay off of that.
Okay.
That would be about the only thing, anything else?
Veterans Day is next month, so maybe they can do something for that.
I think that's it, all that I had.
I just have, the city's new contract and the goals and everything we talked about in the meeting printed up, so you guys can review it, and we can vote on it next week.
Well, Stephanie called, and I had a nice invitation for those water tomorrow, and meet the governor. Or they probably meet the governor. They're gonna be sitting in front of the rope and watch. them. Stephanie called me, and it's where they're opening their trailhead, you know?
Right.
And they're having the governor and 2 other people from the state. And I've asked these people, and I said, did you invite all the mayors? And Mark said, oh, no, just